Hi everyone, it's Stefania here from Rise Above Your Limits. I work as an empowerment coach, and with this video, I really want to talk to you about the victim mentality and how it comes from experiencing traumas in our past. So before becoming an empowerment coach, I've been myself through 13 years of therapy. And this journey with myself truly taught me how traumas not only create stress in the moment we experience them, and that is undoubt, but they also promote a kind of mentality in the future where the same emotions from our past keep on ruling our life. In one of my previous videos, I described very much in detail what kind of behaviors and what kind of emotions are produced by the victim mentality. So the victim mentality is a situation in our life where it seems that there is no escape for us, that we are at the mercy of our life circumstances, and we are also victim of our negative emotions. Negative emotions can be anxiety, depression, anger, fear, sheer terror. When in my previous video, I mentioned the victim mentality, I want to make sure for all the people that are listening to me that there is no judgment whatsoever about what the victim mentality is. I'm not saying that is right or wrong. The normal conversation I would have with my clients, if they bring to the table strong emotions like anxiety, like fear, like depression, I'm going to ask them what are the behaviors that they take in their life, that they see in themselves in their life because of these negative emotions. And then by looking at those behaviors, I'm going to ask them how these behaviors are serving their purpose or the goal that they wish to achieve through the sessions together with me. So the victim mentality is not about being right or wrong. It's about how it's serving us, and also why it's there. If as adults, we may tend to see that the victim mentality is not tremendously functional to achieve our dreams, because once a negative emotion arises with the victim mentality, we tend to respond to the trigger without being in control, without having power of agency. And paradoxically, that kind of power of choice, that power of agency, are those necessary ingredients that we need in order for us to accomplish our dreams and give voice to our aspirations and desires. So the victim mentality is fundamentally a human state. It is normal for us to feel like a victim, and it's normal, unfortunately for us, to experience traumas in our life. I haven't met a single person on earth that hasn't experienced a trauma. Of course, we cannot generalize because every single individual has experienced a different degree of what a trauma can be. And also any individual has a different level of sensitivity. So the way they experience that trauma is according to their belief system and what they believe about themselves. So the victim mentality comes from traumatic situation, as I was telling to you. And now I'm also going to explain you why it comes from trauma. So what happens is in our past, there may be a traumatic experience. And what normally happens is the subconscious mind, that, by the way, rules the 95% of our brain, suppresses the negative memory, the traumatic event, because sometimes it's too much to process. Okay, sometimes when we are victims and when we experience the trauma, by the way, we are a victim. We are a victim, and this is not to judge, but this is just to say that sometimes when we experience cruel, painful, and excruciating life circumstances in our life, it's for us to process and sometimes acknowledge that we have been a victim. And sometimes if the past has already happened, we didn't have a choice. And it's hard to accept and it's hard to acknowledge. So most of the time, when the subconscious mind suppresses the event, is because it's too big, it's too painful. It brings too much pain to be processed, acknowledged, and accepted. So what it does, the subconscious anyway, is to remove the memory so that we are not completely aware of having had that experience. Maybe we have completely forgotten about the trauma, but the emotions that we experience in that frame, in that snapshot of our life, are still active, like volcanoes. And every single time in our life experiences, there is an element of that trauma that comes to the surface. Even if the situation is not traumatic at all, our body gets fueled with so many hormones, stress hormones. The cortisol rises high. And as I said before, we are driven to respond with a fight or flight freeze response. That means that we are giving voice to a preset, a predetermined behaviors where we don't have control, where we don't have a power of choice, where our body is absolutely in a state of danger and survival. So from that level, you also need to realize, as I mentioned in one of my previous videos, that there is a belief in ourselves that we don't have the power, that we are powerless, that there's nothing we can do, that we need to run away, we need to protect ourselves. So from that level of emotions and from that level of behaviors, it's true sometimes that we feel there's nothing I can do, nothing we can do. And let me tell you, even in my present experience, just because I'm an empowerment coach, I'm not, of course, immune to negative emotions. Sometimes I've got sadness, sometimes I experience depressive thoughts, and sometimes I still experience, of course, anxiety. And of course, I've got tools and I've got a professional training to deal and work on my triggers, because triggers will always be there, because our growth is almost unavoidable, right? But it's the understanding that when we are under the effect of those negative emotions, our focus is tremendously narrow. What does it mean? It means that we don't see the options available. Our attention is so concentrated on the problem because the problem is seen as a danger, because we are in survival mode. So it's not just what's happening in the present moment, it's how our past is used as a lens to filter and understand and process the present situation. Okay, so if my beliefs are, I'm not powerful, I'm not good enough, I'm not going to make it, and I feel threatened by the problem because I'm scared, I'm anxious, that means that there is a specific trauma in the past that created a specific set of beliefs, of emotions, and as a consequence, a specific response of behaviors. So what sometimes happens, and I experience many times over and over again with my clients, and I experience that within myself as well, you know, during my personal therapy, is that sometimes when we realize that we are in the victim mentality, we tend to hate ourselves. I used to do that many times. It's like, why I'm in the victim mentality? I need to accomplish stuff. Why the anxiety gets in the way? Why the anger is blocking the view? Why the fear, the frustration are here? I can feel that I'm not at my like optimum standard of behavior and thinking and feeling. So what happens there is that we end up judging our negative emotions, not realizing that they stem from a traumatic experience. And in that traumatic experience, above all, if we were between the age of 0 and 6, when our subconscious when our brain is absolutely and completely subconscious, that means that it's extremely suggestible from all the traumatic experience that we may have in our childhood. That means those experiences that could happen again between the age of 0 and 6 can absolutely determine and affect the rest of our lives if we don't understand how our two different brains operate. So our conscious mind is sometimes the mind that in the present moment as adults gets in a kind of state, a little bit at war with ourselves. Like the conscious mind wants to achieve things, wants to achieve goals, and the subconscious mind is bringing up emotions, because there are elements in our environment with whom we don't feel comfortable with. So in order for us to remove the state of war with ourselves, we also need to understand that when the victim mentality comes with the presence of negative emotions, we need to look at the past trauma. We need to understand what happened in the past and why we have been a victim. And if we have been a victim and we have experienced a state of powerlessness, hopelessness, helplessness, because something tremendously painful and excruciating happened, we just need to make a choice. The past, unfortunately, has happened. And it can be absolutely difficult to look back and re-talk about the experience, because most of us don't want to get re-traumatized. And I'm completely on their side. But on the other side, if we don't look back with professionals able to lead us on a journey towards healing, towards growth, towards processing and integrating the trauma in a way that cannot affect us emotionally anymore, and we are free from the past, we are free from the weight of our past traumatic experience, so that in the present moment, when negative emotions come, we are not victims anymore, but we have a power of choice. We are in control, because the past trauma is not determining our behavioral response in the present moment anymore. So when a trauma happens in our past, and I've been myself victim of a narcissistic abuse when I was a child, what happens there is that I experience a state of total powerlessness, a state of isolation, a state where I didn't feel understood, where I was confused, where I couldn't understand why people that were supposed to love me and comforting me were absolutely providing me with very controversial behaviors. So once my subconscious mind tried to erase the effect of these past traumas and just let me re-experience over and over again these emotions until the situations, came to be so debilitating, because my emotional response was almost around anger. And behind anger, there was fear. There was this deep need to protect myself because I didn't feel protected as a child. So, and I knew that, I realized through therapy that I was at war with myself, because on one side, there was this empowered woman that wanted to come forth. And on the other side, I couldn't look at the victim mentality of this other side of myself that basically said was losing her shit over and over again. And I couldn't look at her. I used to hate her because it wasn't functional for the achievement of my dreams. I couldn't accept I was the victim. I didn't want to look at that. It took me a long, long time to sit down with the trauma and actually realize I didn't have a choice. It wasn't my responsibility for how other people treated me. But unfortunately, because of that experience, I created negative beliefs about who I am, about my presence into this world. And once I look back as an adult at these beliefs, that choice was mine. Do I want to carry these beliefs that make me feel inadequate, not capable, not able, not worthy, that I should shut my voice rather than expressing my gifts, my talents to other people? So the trauma, until it doesn't get acknowledged, accepted, and emotionally processed, it becomes a limit in our life. So carrying on the victim mentality in the present moment is superhuman. It's not easy to get out from the victim mentality. I agree with you, but it is possible. Nobody can force you or impose on you to get out from the victim mentality, because the victim mentality comes from a lack of safety. When we are victims of abuses or any possible trauma, there is a state where we are not able to control our environment because we are in danger. There's something stronger than us. Unfortunately, we make beliefs in state of a dangerous traumatic experience about ourselves, that we don't have the power, while not realizing that that trauma was maybe, if that is the case, could be one day, one single, or sometimes there are, of course, many traumas that happen next to each other, but still, those are separate life experiences that maybe are not even happening anymore when we are adults. But what happens is like those emotions are still ruling our life because the lack of safety that we experienced in the past is still our subconscious trying to protect ourselves. What if we are in danger again? What if I need to be aware of my environment all the time because that past trauma is suggesting me that these things can happen over and over again? So being in the victim mentality is simply trying to find protection from something that we cannot control, from something that we believe we cannot control. So being in the victim mentality, again, is not right or wrong, but it's so debilitating on the long run because it creates the state of high cortisol in our body where stress, anxiety, fear, depression, terror are just happening all the time. And we just resolve problems. That also means we are just devoting our time to protect ourselves all the time or to attacking back, if that's the case, or to get petrified in that not, I don't know what to do state. So for me, through therapy, and that's exactly the journey I embark with my clients, is to create a safe environment in the room, despite I run my sessions on Zoom, where my clients can look back at the trauma, not with the purpose of getting re-traumatized, but with the purpose of really, really understanding the beliefs that made about themselves because of what happened, and also elaborating this scenario that happened in a way that can be accessed, accepted, and processed in a functional way that when we come back to the present moment, that snapshot of that traumatic experience is not affecting their emotions anymore. So it's a lot to take in, right? Because we need to look back at the trauma, we need to accept it, that happened. We need to release the emotions, and to release the emotions, sometimes we need to feel them. Because once we can really feel the emotions in the body, we give our body the power to release them, to release whatever they don't need to do. So our body stores our subconscious mind, and our body stores all the negative emotions that stemmed from these past traumas. The body knows what to do with these emotions, but the mind needs to create a space of freedom for these emotions until the memories and the traumas are suppressed, until we are at war with ourselves, that we don't like our victim mentality, we don't like that experience because they made us believe that we are powerless, that we don't have the power, that there's nothing we could do. There's no chance that we can really free ourselves. And sorry, I lost the track a little bit. What I just wanted to say is like those emotions from the past got suppressed. And that means that the energy of those emotions is stored, is blocked in the body. The body cannot release them because from our mind, there's no intention to accept and process what happened in our past. Once the mind comes to terms with what happened and we give our body the chance to re-experience those emotions without judging. Imagine that the emotion is already very painful, but when we throw upon these emotions layers of judgments, when we are at war with who we are, it becomes terribly difficult. It's almost like the emotions are so trapped within gates, like in a prison, and there's absolutely nothing we could do. The emotions stay where they are, and we keep on projecting them on the outside. So my questions for you at the end of this video is simply this one. What if you could re-explore the trauma without getting re-traumatized? What if you could have the chance to look back at the trauma, accepting your victim mentality, because in that moment, unfortunately, there was nothing that you could do, and you weren't responsible for how other people treated you in that moment. What if you give yourself a break and the chance to accept what happened like it wasn't your fault? And as a consequence, you could allow yourself to refill those emotions from the past only for the purpose to release them. So it's true, we cannot change our past, but what if we can change the way we feel about our past? Because what really happens is, like, when we change the way we feel about our past, we end up changing the way we feel about ourselves. So if our conscious mind is still thinking about big dreams to achieve, your life purpose to be found, those patterns of behavior from past traumas are not supporting that destination. They are keeping you trapped in a mentality that is not expanded, is very narrowed. Because if we are run after by a savory tiger, we need to protect ourselves. We need to run fast. We don't need to value our options. We need to save our life. But once also we understand that the past trauma is in the past, and in the present moment, somehow we don't even have the same actors that play the trauma in our past, but we're still playing the record like it's happening right here, right now. So what if you could have the chance to reprocess and accept emotionally what happened in your past in order for you to come back to the present and completely wake up to a new life where you have the freedom to experience abundance, joy, and well-being without filtering your present and future circumstances with the lenses of your past. So I know, again, this is a long video, but I thought it was worth it to describe all these elements and how past traumatic experience can really affect our well-being and our life story in the present moment, but also to, connect with our future and with our life purpose. So as usual, if any of you would be interested in knowing more about my approach, I use different techniques among, matrix for imprinting, that is a type of hypnosis to connect with your past, emotional freedom techniques to really erase the power of negative emotions. So every time I look at the past with my clients is with the sole purpose to understand the negative beliefs that are still affecting us in the present moment, affecting them in the present moment, and also to erase the power of those negative emotions that are preventing them from basically experience peace, tranquility, and well-being in their life. So if that's the case for you and you want just to drop a message, you can leave a message under this video on YouTube. You find me on Facebook and on Instagram. The name of my pages are Rise Above Your Limits. And I will also take care to leave my details under this video. So if you want to write an email to me instead, you can do that as well. So I send you my love, and whatever life experiences you're going through, please remember that you are still carrying so much light, even if you may not be aware of that. So I send you my love, a huge, huge hug to you all. And I'm sure I will talk to you soon with this video. Thank you so much for listening, and speak to you soon. Bye.